Harry's wife. The Aussie view of Archetypes. Given the fact that Archetypes is now concluded and that the sane part of the world hopes that there shouldn't be a second series, why don't we visit what the Australians, the good old straight-talking Aussies, have to say about the series? Do they regard it as a triumph? Perhaps they have learned many things about themselves as a consequence of the information that they have been provided. We always know that we're going to get some straight talking from our Antipodean chums down under. And of course, Daniela Elsa at news.com.au is going to provide us with that information. Her article reads, Quiet, Harry's wife's podcast flop no one is talking about. It started with so much fanfare and cost tens of millions of dollars, but Harry's wife's project has been an abject failure. If Bucks Could Kill is a podcast about airport bestsellers by Michael Hobbs and Peter Shamshiri. It was only released 3 episodes so far, yet at the time of writing was beating Harry's wife, the Duchess of Sussex podcast Archetypes, on the Spotify charts. Yesterday, the final episode of the actress turned HRH turned content creator and chicken owner series was released, titled Manifesting a Cultural Shift. And after its 12-week run, with the breakout respect for the passing of Queen Elizabeth, there just might be a few nervous executives at Spotify, you know, the ones who paid a reported $32 million to sign up Harry's wife and husband Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex. Despite kicking off in late August amid much fanfare, including Times Square billboards and, briefly, taking out the #1 podcast spot, the Archetypes launch Bang has been reduced to a puttering whimper, with the show currently down in the 31st most popular spot on the streaming platform, only just managing to beat 12-hour sound machines, no loops or fades, which purports to be 12 hours of continuous noise you can sleep to. Not a single one of Archetypes' dozen episodes is in the top 100 episode chart either. It would take the most tenacious, rose-tinted communications executive in the world to somehow attempt to spin this all as representing some sort of success. In fact, after a roster of A-list guests including Serena Williams, Melody Hobson, Mariah Carey, and Paris Hilton, one thing is largely clear. Harry's wife might be a passionate advocate, has absorbed on a cellular level every Brené Brown Instagram quote tile ever shared, character trait acquisition, and have an address bug that would make a People editor tear up. But a great or even mediocre podcaster, she is not. Back in December 2020, Spotify followed in the footsteps of Netflix and announced to the world that it had secured the talents, stop scoffing back there, of the recently emancipated Duke and Duchess. As that year drew to a close, after having started it by doing a royal runner, their future seemed clear. They would diligently turn out worthy TV shows and podcasts that would support their chosen causes. They would care on camera and microphone and be paid handsomely for doing so. What no one had quite figured on was that the grand tell-all interview of all tell-all interviews would not be done for their streaming paymaster, but instead on CBS with their pal Oprah Winfrey. And the podcast where Harry would accuse the royal family with total neglect wouldn't be his own, but rather actor Dax Shepard's. Who wants to bet that a few gluten-free kale salads collided with walls when certain Netflix and Spotify bosses found this all out? Nor did anyone predict that 2 years on, the sum total of Archwell Studios' released content would be one podcast series that has had about all the impact of a new Matchbox 20 album. The problem is, aside from a few revelations about Harry's wife's former life of professional duchessing and her criticising the first TV show to really give her a break, Archetypes has been pretty forgettable. It has not provoked or shifted the conversation around the issue of the stereotypes, archetypes are something different, and labels that women are still saddled with. It has not established Harry's wife as a leading powerful voice on gender equality, and it hasn't proven that simply being a member of the House of Windsor will automatically equal audio gold. Ask yourself, you, a person who has taken the time to read a story about Harry's wife, what can you actually remember about the series? Maybe the fact that in her first episode with Serena Williams, Harry's wife told listeners about a heater in son's Archie's bedroom catching on fire while they were in South Africa in 2019. Or that deal or no deal kerfuffle. However, beyond that and a few headlines, where the 41-year-old made what sounded like digs at the firm, all the episodes have largely disappeared off into the ether of the billions of hours of content already available. Archetypes promised to subvert the labels that try to hold women back. But in reality, it was about as subversive as a freshly ironed pair of jeans at an Iron Maiden concert. Podcasting has not proven a particularly successful vehicle for the Duchess of Sussex, and this series has not unlocked anyone's potential aside from several critics' willingness to consider a mid-morning gin and tonic. One anonymous professional podcast producer speaking to The Telegraph in early September called it sycophantic and cringeworthy and said, "My prediction is that for all the promo it's had, the podcast will be a massive loss leader for Spotify." So far, there has not been a hint that there might be a second series in the works. So what of Harry? Aside from co-hosting with Harry's wife, a one-off special that came in December 2020, there has not been a single peep to suggest that he might have a series himself in the works. All eyes, and indeed a number of profit and loss sheets, are now focused on the reported release next week of Harry and Harry's wife's Under Wraps Netflix series, which is not, according to the Duchess herself, a reality show, but a documentary about the couple's love story. Anyone else feel a tad queasy at the thought? The series has not had an easy birth, with Page 6 reporting earlier this month that the couple parted ways with the first director hired for the project, Oscar nominee Garrett Bradley, after they had a falling out with her over the vision of the project. If the show had just been called about Harry, they could have called it The Frown. There is a hell of a lot riding on this mystery Netflix outing, not least that their deal with the billion-dollar company is reportedly their biggest cash cow. With all that freedom they got in 2020 came the freedom to pay their own bills. Very large bills, too, given they live in a Kardashian-worthy mansion and don't seem to have stinted on the finer things in life, like diamonds and private jetting hither and yon. And art. Harry's wife revealed in one episode that there is a piece in her home that is not fancy. It's kind of this rectangle shape, almost plaque-like, and it just says a few words, very simply across it. Humankind, be both. Which has all the profundity of something slapped on a free water bottle. What this Netflix show, The Love Gloat, really translates to is the most significant test yet of the level of public interest in the Sussexes after nearly 3 years of them taking up a huge amount of space in public consciousness and news feeds. What will win out for the show? Viewers' curiosity about spending a few hours getting up close and personal with people who have the King's mobile number, or fatigue after years of them popping up too regularly to peddle their victim narrative? Are we about to see a whole new side to the couple, or will we be treated to more lines so dangerously eye-rolling that they are liable to cause injuries? Like Harry's wife quoting Greek poet Dinos Christianopoulos in her final Archetypes episode, "What didn't you do to bury me, but you forgot that I was a seed?" Will we be treated to lots of smug self-satisfied caring, and yes, that should be a capital C, or a genuinely real, compelling look at two people whose lives have boasted more drama than a bold and beautiful finale? Will it all feel like a very expensive ploy for public sympathy set to an acoustic guitar soundtrack, or will it tell a moving story which we have never heard or seen before? What the release of Monty Shitshow is the New London, or so I'm guessing, next week constitutes as the first real stress test of their marketability and their brand post-opera, post-pandemic and with King Charles on the throne. Are they still the hot property they were several years ago, or has the sizzle factor ebbed away after all the woe is us outings and their failure so far to achieve anything charitable of substantial note? With Archetypes, the Sussexes have certainly planted a seed, but who knows exactly what it might grow into. A scathing review, of course, of the failure of Archetypes, and is to be expected by the straight-talking Australians. It's not going very well for Harry's wife at all, and the downward spiral is, as I predicted, continuing. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.